Who
Hi.
knows when she'll.
Hello. It's okay. Hi. Hello. Hi. Welcome to this is BLTD Extracast number 5. I am Ryan Wolf, at Wolf BLTD on Twitter, joined by my esteemed colleague, Brayton Wilson.
Hello there.
Hi. Tell the people your Twitter.
My Twitter is at BJ Wilson WGR.
And you can find us www.bltdsports.com, at BLTD Sports on Twitter, facebook.com/BLTD podcast. Now, the fun part about this week is that this is the only podcast we're doing on the website. Normally we do the BLTD podcast, but I've been really busy and I don't really have time because I was going to record this podcast, do a BLTD podcast, do the game recap for the Sabres game tonight. And I figured at the same time, that's all a very poor idea. So I'm not doing that. Just doing this in the game recap, which leads me to my next point. As we talk about the Buffalo Sabres are playing the Toronto Maple Leafs. For those who may like the weird listening points of the podcast, right now there's 18:52 left in the first period, so the game just started. If anything cool happens, we'll let you know. But by the time you listen to the podcast, it'll already have happened. So I mean, I guess that's cool.
Oh, hopefully people are tuned in live.
I'm talking about the game. Like, to us, the only reason we do this is because we just do this on Google Hangouts because it's the easiest way to record. That's how that works. I mean,
and it's the best quality.
It's been a while, so I actually forgot because I know Google Plus is getting rid of the Hangouts or whatever. So I was really confused if this was how we were doing it or if we did it a different way, because usually when I record the BLTD podcast, Toronto scores. It looks like some guy. Parento, cool. Do you like my color commentary there? It looks like some guy. I guess that with that goal being scored on Chad Johnson by P.A. Parento at 18:22 left in the first. We'll start from the bottom and go to the top. Goaltending. Now that wasn't Chad Johnson's fault. It was a deflected puck. It looks like it was deflected off of. Oh no! Parento got a stick down and tipped it. That was a nice play by P.A. Parento. The puck gets redirected past Chad Johnson. The question I have for you, Brayton, we've seen Chad Johnson. He started 5 straight games since the Robin Lehner injury. Is Chad Johnson going to be the guy, do you think, to carry this team until Leonard returns? And I'm thinking probably a round number, maybe about 20 games.
Yeah. I mean,
is Johnson the guy?
Well, I mean, you almost think he has to be. I mean, I don't know who else would be available. I know that Kari Ramo was put on waivers today, so maybe after tonight's game, especially if Buffalo loses, maybe that Ramo would be claimed. But I mean you got Nathan.
Sorry, with the Ramo, the one thing about Ramo that I saw a lot of Sabres fans talk about today was his contract. But he's an unrestricted free agent after the year, so even if you bring him in and he's terrible, when Leonard comes back, you just waive him again, and either someone else picks him up or he goes to Rochester. So it's not that big of a deal in terms of claiming him. Or
if Ramo plays better than Chad Johnson can go on waivers and go to Rochester as well.
Although Tim Murray does like Chad Johnson a lot. In a reduced role with a better defense, which we'll talk about in a little bit, but in a reduced role, Chad Johnson can probably be very adequate, but being a number 1 is just not – it doesn't look like he's cut out for it, at least at this point.
Right.
But as you were saying, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Yeah, no. Okay. I just I'd like Ramo, even though, people were saying he's 29, he's got a big cap hit and everything. He's had some pretty good flashes in the NHL with the Flames. I mean, at one point last year, he looked like he was going to be the starter, and then I think an injury sort of derailed that. But I mean, not only that, but I mean, I think that Ramo could establish himself in a different setting. But if Chad Johnson struggles, you don't really want Lewin in because, you'd much rather have a guy like Lewin developing in Rochester. But
even if Lewin plays, you have to remember he's only played 1 game in Rochester and that was the first game he's played in a long time because of his concussion problems.
December.
Yeah, so since December, he overcame the concussion issue, but he's played like almost in we'll say 10 months time. He's played one actual hockey game, like a regular season game, and then got called up from Rochester and has sat on the bench ever since. I mean, at this point, the reason I bring it up is not only because Ramo's on waivers, but because the Sabres play back-to-back next Friday and Saturday, or this Friday, Saturday, I apologize. And that would be game 6 and game 7 straight for Chad Johnson. So you have to figure, I mean, I'm not sure if they're ready to call up Linus Ullmark, Andrei Makarov, maybe. But I mean, you have to think that if they don't claim anybody or trade for anybody, which we at this point in time, if the Sabres are making a move, it's going to be in the waiver market, because Tim Murray said, flat out, we checked the market when after Leonard got hurt, and the amount of return people wanted for their goaltenders was too ridiculous. I mean, because if you had it your way, if he had it his way, I'm sure Tim Murray would have just went out and picked up Jonas Hiller from the Flames, which obviously that probably Hiller will probably be a Flame for the rest of the year, or at least until the deadline, if not the rest of the year. He's also on our expiring contract. But if they want too much, you can't go out and, again, it's the problem is that they paid so much for Robin Leonard to be the number one, to spend the season figure out if he can be the one, because that's the next thing the Sabres have to figure out. They have to develop the players they have in the system, as well as figure out if they have a number one, if not, where they can get that number one.
Yeah, no, and I mean,
so you're not gonna go out and trade, a top prospect for a young goaltender,
absolutely,
to play 20 games when Leonard's going to come back and be the guy.
Yeah, no, I mean, I wouldn't give up a prospect to get a number one goalie, but I mean, yeah, I mean, it was obviously it was Tim Murray's first risky move as general manager of the Buffalo Sabres. I mean, but it makes,
even with the injury, it's still, as we discussed before, it makes sense, because you have to pay a lot to get the guy, because we found out that Ottawa wasn't the team that was trying to acquire him. Ottawa was trying to trade him. Mm-hmm. The Oilers were interested before they picked up Cam Talbot, and apparently the number one pick or the first round pick is what put the Sabres on top to get Leonard, and that's just how much he values, Tim Murray values Robin Leonard. But with Leonard being so young, the thought process is when Robin Leonard is ready to be that number one and the Sabres are good, he'll be in the prime of his career. Mm-hmm. He won't be a guy like Cam Talbot where you'll pay a lot of money now, and then towards the end of the contract he'll be a little older, but he'll be ready to go. They're getting a guy who will be ready to go soon, and will be in the prime of his career soon, with a team that's in the prime soon. So it's a much of a present move as it was a future move. But another thing I'll mention in a few minutes, it's going to take time. It's going to take a lot of time for things to click and things to make sense and things to feel good. So when you see Sabres fans at Sabres games, like I've been to a couple games, or I've been to a game as a fan, I'm going to my second game as a fan this weekend, and you hear all the fans complaining about, I thought they were supposed to be good. I thought they were going to be tough to beat and all that stuff. So adjust your radars. I mean, even today we saw there was an article or thing on Twitter that came out that said, let me get it popped up on my phone here really quick, because it was a really cool thing I saw in the tweet bots, and it's broken down for common folk like you and I who may not understand fancy stats as well as the experts do. But essentially, it puts the Buffalo Sabres at roughly like a 95.8 PDO, which everybody, if you're 100, that's average. If you're below, you're expected to come up to 100. If you're above 100, you almost always come back down to 100. Like, for instance, right now, Arizona is good and lucky, but their PDO is like 108.5. Usually that means you're with a high PDO, it means you are kind of playing over your head.
Yeah.
So clearly Arizona.
That's the definition of Arizona right now.
And that's kind of why I like PDO. It's a lot of fun to look at. But you look at Buffalo, their PDO right now, like I said, is a little over or a little under 96. So it's like 95.7, 95.8. But they are in the good but unlucky category. So, and then that makes, like, I saw that and that made so much sense to me, because Brayton, you've watched the Sabres games as much as I have. You pay as much attention as I do. Mm-hmm. there are a lot of times where they're just not getting the breaks that other teams seem to find them. Like we just saw a play a little while ago where it was Eichel and Kane. Kane passes the puck over to Eichel. Any other time the puck goes in, that time he just shot the puck wide.
Yeah. Yeah,
you get two talented players like that. It sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, and they've just been more unlucky than lucky.
Yeah, and then I mean, and not only that, but I mean, you saw the game against Florida where Kane had a wide open net and he could have scored, but he got the shot blocked by a stick shaft. I mean, it would have gone in the net, but just those random block shots and those just unlucky breaks. It's tough. It's tough to see, and it's tough to because I mean what really kind of set me off today was when Damian Cox posted the article on Evander Kane saying that the trade that Tim Murray pulled off with Winnipeg is comparable to the Joe Thornton trade already. It's like, whoa. It's only been 5 games.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You have to remember too, not only is it 5 games, but it's the first 5 professional games he's played since last February. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the one thing. I'm just going to go into it right now because I know you'll agree with me and you can expand on this a little more. But I saw a couple games ago, obviously with the Blackhawks are struggling, and we all have our feelings about the Blackhawks because they're not a very good organization in terms of how they deal with players with issues, as we have seen in the Patrick Kane situation. But that's a different conversation for a different time. Talking on ice stuff, Marian Hossa said a couple games ago, guys, it's going to take us 15 games to click and be good. That's why you see Joe Quenneville rolling lines trying to figure out who can play with who. So when people say to me, oh, the Sabres suck, they're not as good as advertised, they're supposed to be a lot better, I say, be patient, give it 15 to 20 games. Like I had someone on Twitter ask me yesterday the same thing. They said, is 20 a fair over-under? And I said, Hossa said 15 for the Blackhawks. I'll say, 15 to 20 is good for the Sabres. It may take longer. It may take less. But you have to remember, a lot of these guys are playing together on lines, maybe for the first time, or they've played less than, 10 games together on that line, including preseason, which we all know how preseason works for professionals who know they're going to make the team. They don't take it, may not be taken as seriously, or they may try different things to see if hey, if I try this, will it work? If I try that, will it work? So, at this point, you're a handful of games into the regular season. Yeah, things aren't clicking as well as you expected them. But you look at the line of like Jack Eichel and Evander Kane. Yeah, Evander Kane hasn't scored a goal yet, but he's been a difference maker on the ice. And once he starts to score goals, once he breaks that dam, he's going to be fine.
And Evander, in 5 games, I mean, he's only got 2 assists, but I mean, he's got 15 shots on goal, which is tied for 3rd on the team. He leads the team with 14 hits. I mean, he's got 5 takeaways, which leads the team, and he averages near 21 minutes per game on the ice. I mean,
yeah, he does, and he does shoot the puck a lot, but it's one of those situations where, people say, oh, hey, Evander Kane shoots the puck a lot, but here's another thing. You can't score if you don't shoot at the net. I mean, that's just...
And you want to talk possession stats, too. I mean, Evander Kane's probably one of the best possession stat players on the team. Ryan O'Reilly is currently, 2nd right now, which is surprising for even strength Corsi. But I mean, Kane's 3rd. I mean, or 4th, I should say. Excuse me. 5th. Never mind. But still, I mean, really good possession stats still. I mean, compared to a team last year where, I mean, through the first game, everybody was probably a minus 70 in Corsi. But I mean,
what's fascinating to me is finally seeing these fancy stats articles and graphics, and not seeing the Sabres have to be excused off of the map, because the last 2 years, every time a fancy stat graphic came out, we always got the star at the bottom that said Buffalo's whatever is so bad, so we had to exclude them from the actual graphic because it wouldn't fit in the graphic.
Yeah.
So, and it's I mean, those, you look at the fancy stats. I mean, yeah, you get the on ice product and you're like, it leaves a lot to be desired. But you look at the fancy stats, you see them improving, and that's all the Sabres want this year. Like, if you can develop a rapport between Eichel and Kane, where Evander Kane. Speaking of Evander Kane, they just showed an overhead shot where Evander Kane had a puck directed across the crease at him. He put a stick on it and it went wide by maybe a foot.
Yeah.
So again, he's
Another
getting
back
chances. He's getting chances. He's just unlucky. I mean,
yeah.
it's not going to be a scenario where you're going to get a guy who never scores goals, just goes off and scores 5 goals in 10 games. He's going to be a guy where you don't opposing teams are happy he's not scoring right now because they know once he starts to score, once he gets that confidence back, it's going to be tough for other teams to stop him. I mean, the one thing I'm as I'm watching as he skates across the screen, the one thing I get really irritated with is the insistence on stuffing Marcus Foligno in the top 6. I mean, I know it's a big deal for some people to try to pump the narrative that he is a top 6 player. I don't believe so. I'm personally of the thought process that Foligno didn't hit his ceiling, but when he came up from Rochester that first time and really dominated, and I think it was like 14 games, he had like 10 points in 14 games or something like that. And then they came back. But it's like baseball. They always say it doesn't matter how good you are when you debut. It's how good you are after the pitching and other teams adjust to you for the first time. And I feel like Foligno is one of those guys where either he didn't adjust to the league after they adjusted to him, or he just is not talented enough to be able to adjust to be a good player. So that's, I mean, I feel like that's why he's a bottom 6 guy, is because he's just not talented enough to be a top 6 player in this team. Maybe somewhere else he is, but in Buffalo, he's not. I don't think he is. I mean, I was at the, it was, I can't even remember what game it was. Oh, it was Tampa Bay, when Tampa Bay played here recently in Buffalo on a weekend, a Saturday, the afternoon game, 1 o'clock. Foligno was skating on a line with Eichel and Kane, and it was painful to watch because either he was too slow or he was offsides, or he'd get a pass to him and it would explode on his stick, or he couldn't handle the puck. And it's tough. I mean, at some point in time, are the Sabres going to have to go out and acquire, a second line right winger? Maybe. But right now they're trying all in-house options. And that's the other thing too, that people get so up in arms about. If someone's not good now, they're not going to sit on it for the whole season. I mean, yeah, they're not going to go out in December and go make a blockbuster deal, an Evander Kane deal in December. But when March rolls around, or when February 29th rolls around, I apologize, the leap year trade deadline day, the Sabres should be in a position to go out and acquire a guy to make their top 6 better. I mean, if they need it by then, because at that point, someone may develop into the role.
Right.
But
yeah.
Again, I keep preaching people, be patient.
You would rather hope a guy develops, because then you'd have to give up more assets. I mean, if you wanted to get an established right winger, I mean, depending on the caliber of player and the price, I'm not sure if I'm ready to give up some of my good prospects for a player that's established already. I mean, I get the mentality, like you want to win now and you want to do everything you can to win, but I'd almost rather have a guy like Bailey Baptiste or one of those guys in Rochester develop and see how they project out. And I mean, if they're ready to be NHL talents, sure, just keep them. But if
not just that, but like you mentioned with those younger talents, they may be that guy that steps up and takes the role. So, I mean, you could have a Baptiste or a Bailey show up, and they're talented guys. I mean, there's no rushing, but if they can come in and be that guy, who knows? I mean, crazier things have happened for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I mean, just, I'm just not ready to give up a big price to get a guy who, maybe, I mean, maybe he's got a contract that they can get rid of, or, he's a guy that, has a 1 year or 2 years left on a deal like Ryan O'Reilly was, and then the Sabres traded for him. But I mean, if you could re-sign him to a new contract, that's probably better. But I mean, you just gotta find the right player. You gotta find the right price. And, with the O'Reilly trade, with the Kane trade, you already gave up quite a bit of assets for your future.
Yeah, and it's another thing too. Like I keep saying, I keep preaching. I've preached it for a very long time now. Just remain patient. If the Sabres are in the playoffs this year, it's not a bad thing. I mean, it never is a bad thing. I guess that's the wrong way to put it. If the Sabres in the playoffs this year, don't expect too much. Because I mean, the goal every year to make the playoffs, try to win the Stanley Cup, but logically this year, the goal is just to develop. to get Mark Pysyk more comfortable in the National Hockey League, to get Rasmus Ristolainen more prepared to be a number one in a number one pairing.
Pysyk pairing is just still so good.
To get Jake McCabe more comfortable in the National Hockey League, so when next year rolls around, we're not asking, okay, we've got the top two, who's going to be the other four defensemen, or we've got a top line and a half, who's going to be the other six skaters. Like, you have a better idea, and it gets easier and easier to field a better team. I mean, like I said, the biggest question marks right now are secondary scoring, for me at least, secondary scoring and the goaltending. I feel like the defense is going to shake out when Zach Bogosian returns. But until then, I mean, unfortunately, we don't know. The defense hasn't been great. It hasn't been great right now. Mike Weber is back to being Mike Weber. He let up an ugly goal last game where instead of playing the puck, he just decided to dive in front of the net and kind of throw himself at the puck. It didn't work very well. But I mean, I don't know if, I mean, Carlo Koliakovo has already worked his way on as the extra defender, as we all suspected, but I don't know who sits when Bogosian comes back. Maybe it is Mike Weber, but he hasn't been good. And I mean, I know you're going to need extra defensemen because guys like Georges are going to get hurt, but dude, like Mike Weber is just not good at hockey.
Yeah. That, or you put Carlo Koliakovo on waivers and send him to Rochester, and then you just sit Mike Weber.
Well, I'm not sure if they want to put Koliakovo on waivers because I think they brought him in to be that depth guy, the 6'7" 8 guy,
and he has a left-handed shot too. So
yeah, so it's something where, I mean, I'm just thinking about it right now. I like the idea of Sam Reinhart on the first line. I mean, he got his first NHL goal last game, which was wonderful. But you know, it's man, I don't know. It's just it's interesting to see what Dan Bilesma is doing, because for once the Sabres have a competent head coach who is up to the latest NHL standards, and he may try crazy things, and crazy things may not work. But you know what? At least he's trying it.
Yeah, and speaking of defenders, going back to the right wing conversation, I would much rather try to acquire a top left-handed defenseman over a right winger right now.
Absolutely, because that right there may be a difference maker. It may, what the right winger may do for you, the second line right winger may do for you, would probably be trumped by what a top left-handed defenseman would do for you.
Yeah, and I mean, if you get that top left-handed defenseman, you got a pair for Rasmus Ristolainen that's better than a Josh Georges, because let's face it, Josh Georges is not a top pair defenseman.
He's serviceable.
He's serviceable, but he's a 3, 4, 5, 6 defender at best. NHLer for sure, but just, you know, he's not used to playing the top line role or top pair role. Never was in Montreal. Last year he just kind of had to be thrown in because who else was going to play that?
Absolutely. But, I mean, he's a good leader. He's a good guy with the young kids. Good to have around in that defensive core, but he's hurt a lot. And when he's in, he's okay. But it's not, you know, you don't necessarily want him playing 23 minutes a night. Right. I'm interested to see what happens with, do they try to put Ristolainen with Bogosian when Bogosian comes back? Do they keep Georges and Bogosian together? Do they put Risto on the second pairing? It's going to be interesting to see what happens, because there's just, I mean, the logical solution at this point would be Georges, Bogosian, probably Franzen and Ristolainen, and then Pysyk and McCabe, with Mike Weber being a scratch, because at this point, like we said, there's no way he's better than any one of those defensemen, statistically or fancy stat wise. The only thing he may be better at those players at is having a good heart and a lot of grit. But besides that, I mean, I'm not really sure what Mike Weber does for this hockey team, and it's just no, and it's bad too, because like you go look at his. I mean, I understand the Sabres have been bad for a long time, but you go look at his hero chart, and he doesn't even qualify as like a fourth pair or third pairing or an extra defenseman. He's just completely off the charts because his numbers have been so poor. I feel like if the Sabres were good a couple years ago, he may not even be around now. So it's just interesting to look into a crystal ball, especially on Back to the Future Day. Look back look back into the past, I guess, and wonder what could have been if Mike Weber was on a hockey team that was actually good, what his role would be, because I don't think it would be much. But
yeah,
I mean, let's not stomp completely all over the guy. But yeah, it's it's not good. He's not good at all.
No, he's not.
I do want to mention really quick. We have the opportunity to be in the press box. Thankfully, the Sabres granted us that. So you may start seeing us in the press box in November. So expect more coverage from that as soon as we start to get to games. I know I'm trying to enjoy a couple games as a fan. My wonderful girlfriend has half-season tickets, so usually when I'm in town, I try to get to games with her. So there are probably a couple games where I go with her, and then a couple games I try to get in the press box. But I mean, I was really bummed out because the one game I went to against Tampa, I figured for sure the box was going to be full, and then our buddy Mike Straw of the Hockey Writers was the only one up there. I was like, well, I'll be damned.
Yeah.
We always appreciate the access. Same with the Amherst. We have the opportunity to go to some Amherst games. Something's happening. Oh man.
Delorier just hit the post.
Snake bitten, man. Come on, like Eichel or not Eichel. Ennis to Delorier on a 2-on-1, and Delorier bites the pipe. One thing about Nick Delorier, by the way, I really like the way he plays hockey. I understand he's going to be average at best, but he hits a lot. He plays a heavy game. He's like, I know I just made fun of Mike Weber for it, but he's got a lot of heart. He's got a lot of grit. He'll punch people in the face to stand up for his teammates, and he can put one in the net every so often. And again, going back to the game I was at with, I believe it was the Tampa game, Delorier was all over the ice, and he scored a goal. I mean, right place, right time goal, but he was all over the ice, got the goal, and it's just guys like that will help your team be more successful because he can fly around the ice and take pressure off your defense and take the pressure off the other lines if he's going out there and wearing the other team down. And like I said, I liked if his game continues to develop the way it does, he could be a very solid fourth liner. I mean, the thing about him too is he knows his role and he plays it well. So I have a lot of fun watching Nick Delorier play hockey.
What I like about Nick Delorier is he's the fourth line player that you want. He's the guy that like you said, you want him going out there throwing his body around while still being able to make plays. And I think that the trade that Murray pulled off to send Braden McNabb and 2 second-round picks to LA to get Delorier and Hudson Fasching, that is a very, very underrated trade because Hudson Fasching, he could be the future right winger that the Sabres need.
There's so many. The thing is that's what I love about Tim Murray is he's stashed so many good players and so many good prospects that you don't really know what the future holds, but you know it's going to be good because I mean if the thing about this current Buffalo Sabres front office is it seems like if they know that they're more likely than not to trade him.
Yeah.
Because if it blows up in their face, like with Zadorov and Grigorenko, for instance, could it blow up in their face? Absolutely. It could be a horrible trade. They could both turn out to be phenomenal hockey players. But
anything saying that the trade with Grigorenko, Ryan O'Reilly was a big bust for the Sabres as well?
I'm sorry. I was reading my Twitter or my phone. What was that?
I was just cracking a joke. I was saying that did somebody write an article saying that the Sabres trade with Colorado was a big bust as well?
Not yet, no. But last checked, Grigorenko is still a healthy scratch. He may have played since then, but last I saw, he's a healthy scratch. 2
games and he's got 1 assist.
Oh wow! But like I said, you have to take the risk. If you sit and keep house money, like if you're playing with house money and you know you're playing with house money, yet you sit on it and you're just like, now we'll keep what we have. I mean, the Sabres are going to be okay this year. 85 points like we talked about before, maybe. But just think if they hadn't traded for Evander Kane or Ryan O'Reilly or went out and signed a guy like Cody Franzen, they would probably be headed for another 60-point season, 65-point season.
Austin Matthews, tanking for Austin Matthews too.
Exactly. I mean, so at some point in time, you have to take a risk. And I feel like We may never see Hudson Fasching in a Sabres uniform. We may never see Justin Bailey in a Sabres uniform. We may never see Nick Baptiste in a Sabres uniform. I hope we. But yeah, that's the thing. I keep saying the same damn thing over and over again. I'm a broken record, but I tell people to be patient, and I tell people to trust the process. Trust Tim Murray. He knows what he's doing. I feel like he's proven himself pretty well so far. I mean, yeah, again, they haven't been great with Tim Murray in office, but look at everything that he's changed. They've become a better hockey team. They're becoming a better hockey team. They got a lot of talent. You just have to trust the man. He knows what he's doing. But it's going to take time. Like I said, I'll have a podcast one day, an hour long of me just saying it's going to be okay. Trust the process. He knows what he's doing. The team's going to be okay because people just.
I feel like we already have had that.
Yeah, we do it all the time. I did want to mention something. I just got a text from my girlfriend Tori. She wants me to mention why is the media obsessed with Evander Kane and his helicopter thing, but not Carlo Koliakovo or Jamie McGinn. Now, I can probably just point it out for everybody. Evander Kane is a black athlete, and the media seems to. Canadian. He's a black athlete, and the media seems to enjoy surrounding themselves with black athletes who like to enjoy themselves and spend their money and do nice things. Don't mind you that there's, I mean, in this situation, there were white athletes, white teammates with him, but never mind that. It's, the day after, I thought it was funny, all in good fun. You've got money. You and your friends want to go see a baseball game. So instead of driving to Canada, you take a helicopter because, oh, that's right, you're a multi-millionaire. Okay. Smart thing to do. What's the first thing I see on Twitter the next day? Buffalo media questioning Evander Kane about his helicopter trip. Who gives a damn?
Yeah.
That's how I feel.
No, if you want, I mean, he could take a limo to the game, and I wouldn't care. He could take a helicopter. He could take a limo made of money stacks to the Toronto Blue Jays game.
He could parachute into the goddamn stadium, and I wouldn't care.
Parachute made of money?
Made of money. He could throw money out of his pockets. I wouldn't care. The media is just way too obsessed with that stuff, and it's gotta stop, man. It's just gotta stop. It's a bunch of old white guys, old bitter white guys being pissed off about young rich athletes. Get over it, man. Get over it.
Well, I understand. He was, I don't know what you would want to call it in Winnipeg. I mean, he didn't really get in hot water. It was just he just did a lot of things that
he's being a kid. He's being a young adult, and people don't like that. People don't like that he may be opinionated. He may know himself. He may have a very good idea of what his self-worth is, but like you go on, you follow Evander Kane on Snapchat like I do. They had an off day. They had an off day. What did Evander Kane do? He flew to New York City to see his girlfriend and go see the Mets play in the playoffs. There was nothing about that. No big deal about that. But once he goes out and gets a helicopter and spends a couple dollars to be smart about something, it's a big deal. It feels like I don't know if it's pigeonholing or stereotyping, whatever it is, but it's a joke. Like let the kid live his life. I understand he's a professional athlete. He's got a lot of stuff to live up to. Be a hero or whatever all that crap is. But like, it's not that big of a deal. It'll be okay.
Marcus Foligno just beat out an icing call.
That's impressive. He should be put on the first line now so he can, I don't know, be stupid, I guess.
Oh boy.
That was a good play. Yeah, I'm live commentating. There's 13 seconds left in the first period right now.
And Cody Franzen's still struggling.
Yeah, he's not really, I don't know if he's not fitting in or if he's just still getting the wheels oiled. But
I just don't understand why he's put on a pairing with Mike Weber. They're both incredibly slow skaters. They're horrible skaters.
It's probably because of necessity. Because I would assume that Weber and Franzen together, by the way, for those aesthetic purposes, those keeping score at home, after one period, the Buffalo Sabres trailed the Toronto Maple Leafs 1-0 at the First Niagara Center. I feel like I was doing a sports update back from my college days right there. But I feel as if putting Franzen and Weber together is less bad for the franchise or less bad for the team on the ice than putting Weber and Pesic together and putting Franzen and McCabe together, or vice versa. So you put your strength of Georges and Ristolainen together, and then Pesic and McCabe together, and then you kind of take a chance with Franzen and Weber.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I'm wrong, but that's just how I feel.
I don't know. It's just, there's got to be a better option than just
there is. It's Zach Bogosian, but he can't play yet.
I mean, even Carlo Koliakovo. Carlo Koliakovo can skate. Carlo Koliakovo, yeah, he's more of an offensive defenseman as well with Cody Franzen. But, I mean, God, I'd much rather put Carlo Koliakovo, a player that can actually skate and, get down the ice, than Cody Franzen.
Well, we'll see soon, because, what always happens after a podcast, something happens. So I'm assuming either the Sabres acquire Kari Ramo tomorrow, or Bogosian comes back soon, or I don't know, something happens, because we always seem to podcast a tick too early. We wait for the big news to happen, nothing happens, we go on, then big news happens. It's just how we roll here at BLTD, man. But I do want to talk about one more thing before we do start wrapping the show up, because I'm very hungry. I want to go eat dinner. But I want to talk about the reason that we're having the podcast today. John Tortorella back in the National Hockey League. Awesome news for the National Hockey League. If for nothing else, we'll get to watch him destroy the Blue Jackets. But Elliot Friedman, as pointed out to me by Mike Straw, as mentioned, friend from the Hockey Writers, at Mike Straw Writes on Twitter, pointed out to me while I was at work this afternoon that it's a second-round pick, apparently, going from Columbus to Vancouver
just because it's in season.
That's why, okay, because I didn't see that. So off-season is 3, in-season is 2? That's fascinating.
Yep, apparently.
I think that rule is dumb, and they'll probably get rid of it with the new CBA, but I digress. When Columbus went 0-5, 0-4, 0-5, I started to have a feeling like Todd Richards was probably on the hot seat. Usually what happens in those scenarios is the coach goes first and then they start to make personnel moves. But apparently, according to Elliot Friedman, I think it was last week in his 30 Thoughts, he said that Blue Jackets GM Jarmo Kekalainen, I can't pronounce his name, but
Kekalainen, you had it right.
Kekalainen, okay, cool. Jarmo Kekalainen. He apparently wanted to make a deal for a player, assuming it was going to be a defenseman, but we'll talk about that in a second. But then Columbus extended their losing streak to 0-7-0, which is the worst start, tied for the worst start in NHL history. Not even franchise history, the history of hockey, the history of the National Hockey League, the worst start ever. You have to do something. Apparently trades weren't going to happen, so they dumped Todd Richards, who wasn't bad. I mean, he brought him to the playoffs a couple of years ago, and he probably would have brought him to the playoffs back-to-back years if it wasn't for some ancient curse, witchcraft or something on that franchise, because the amount of injuries they had last year was ungodly.
500 man games lost.
Yeah, just absolutely incredible. Now they come back this year, and Sergei Bobrovsky is not right. His save percentage is in the 8s. The offense, the offense is not clicking. The defense is atrocious. I mean, the players they have on defense aren't great as it is, and that still may necessitate some sort of trade. But I mean, Columbus is, I don't know what's up with Columbus. Their offense is spectacularly talented, but nothing's happening.
They're all busts.
Yeah, nothing's happening. I mean, they got Brandon Saad, they have Nick Foligno, they have Ryan Johansson, they have Brandon Dubinsky, Cam Atkinson. I mean, the list goes on, and there's just nothing. Now, as for Tortorella, I mean, I'm excited to see him back in the league because it's always fun when John Tortorella is around. But as for that team, he's probably going to completely change their identity. A lot more heavy hitting, a lot more grit, grind, all that stuff. I'm not sure how the finesse players are going to do, but it's going to be fun. It's going to be a lot of fun to see what they do in Columbus.
Yeah, and I really think that Tortorella is the type of coach that's going to light a fire underneath some of the better players. And Tortorella's a guy that really wants production from his top role players. I mean, he's going to ask more of a guy from like Brandon Dubinsky, who is a great, great player. It's just he's just been not there this year. I mean, other guys, I mean, like, Cam Atkinson, even, I mean, Brandon Saad's there, and he's actually been somewhat decent this year. And Nick Foligno has just been, he's been so, not like last year, but I mean, I'm sure that Tortorella is going to go in there and he's going to light something on fire, and a lot of those guys are going to react in a good way.
I think too that it'll probably, I mean, he signed a 3-year deal. I don't figure he'll see that deal. I mean, maybe, but we know how it's worked with Torts. Is that, I mean, if we're pals, call him Torts, but it always seems to me that he gets the most out of a team, and then they kind of just get burned out. And I mean that's how I see it, at least. With New York, he was doing good for a little while, and then it just kind of seemed like the message got dull.
Mm-hmm.
No one knows what happened in Vancouver. That was just ridiculous. But it seems like his message may get a little dull, and you have to, at that point, you have to part ways, because it's not smart or safe if players aren't heeding the message or just understanding the message. So it's a big move for Columbus, because he's well known. I mean, he's Stanley Cup winner, 2004 with the Lightning.
Seems so long ago now.
It's been so long. It's been over 10 years, which is ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
But he knows what it takes to win. Had a lot of success with the Rangers. Obviously didn't get a Stanley Cup in New York, but came close a couple times, but just couldn't do it. Just couldn't make it happen. So
I brought up the idea of the Blue Jackets hiring a guy like John Tortorella, and I got a couple of responses from Twitter like, "You're nuts! Like, why would the Blue Jackets want to hire Tortorella?" I'm like, well, what else do they have? They have Craig Hartsburg as their associate coach.
Yeah, we talked about that last week on the tweet bots.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like, it's like, I mean, I don't know what other better option there is. I mean, there were reports out of Switzerland that they were talking to Guy Boucher, but Guy Boucher is already coaching in Switzerland. And I mean, I just don't get it. I don't know, where people are coming up with these radical ideas of other coaches. Cause I mean, I don't know. Tortorella seemed like the best fit for me. I mean, people were saying like, well, I don't understand the hiring. It's like, well, I kind of understand it. It's just like Tortorella is a coach that really asks for a lot of production out of his players. He's a guy that's energy. Like, I mean, and it's not like he's got a horrible system or anything like that. It's not like, Ted Nolan, where he has no system. It's just kind of like, okay, go out there and play. Oh, what are we going to do here? You go on the ice. You go on the ice. I'm a fourth liner. I don't care. Go on the ice.
I'm just going to be interested to see if they react and adjust, because we've seen it happen before where a team fires coaches and brings in new coaches and it doesn't do anything.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to assume that all those players are going to have to earn their ice time.
Mm-hmm.
And that may be tough, but might be tough for them. But I feel like it's probably going to work out for them. They may not make the playoffs this year. I mean, they started 0-7. So they may need to go on a stretch to get themselves back into contention. But it's early. It's early, I know, but this kind of stuff can linger and just be bad for a very long time. I should check that right now. I know that Columbus in that PDO chart, yeah, they're kind of in the almost halfway between bad unlucky and good unlucky. They're almost at 50%. But
their possession stats aren't that bad. It's just their goaltending and defense is horrible right now. They're putting shots on net. I mean, they've outshot opponents a lot this year.
The defense is so bad, like so bad. I mean, when Jack Johnson's in your top pairing, you've already shot yourself in the foot. But I guess up the podcast, the BLTD Extracast number 5. Talked a lot of Sabres. We got a lot more Sabres talk to go. It's always nice to get on with you, man, and talk hockey.
Well, one of these days we're going to do a live podcast again, whether it's another mega podcast or we just do it, you and me.
The goal is another mega podcast, but at this point in time, I mean, my schedule is going to be weird for the next 5 weeks. I'm working 9:30 or 9 to 5:30, and then after 5 weeks, I don't know what my schedule is going to be. So
next mega podcast might come next year, July, after development camp.
It might have to. Yeah, it might have to. I mean, I'm going to try. I'm trying my hardest to make it happen soon, but it may have to wait a little while. Because my schedule, I get my schedule in, I think, 2 weeks for the next 6 months, and then I get to try to get a new schedule in 6 months. But by that point, I might try to live in Buffalo because I'm trying to move to Buffalo.
Yeah, well, that's not a bad thing. If you moved to Buffalo, I'd be pretty happy. We can hang out more.
There would be a lot more people. There would be a lot of people that'd be very happy, including you, my girlfriend, a bunch of friends, me, other podcasting friends. We could start video casting as well because we have Andy Meyer from the BLTD network, and
absolutely,
we'll see what happens with the Gear Network. I should say, I apologize, but on the BLTD, under the BLTD roof. But with that being said, I am at Wolf BLTD on Twitter.
And I am at BJ Wilson WGR on Twitter.
I was going to ask you where you were there. You can follow us on Twitter. Follow at BLTD Sports on Twitter, BLTD.com or BLTDsports.com, Facebook.com/BLTD podcast. Game recap will be going up tonight. This podcast will probably go up tonight or tomorrow. And then obviously there's also an article, Louis DiBiase, I believe. How you pronounce his last name so I don't do it wrong? DiBiase, that's what I thought. Louis DiBiase is making his BLTD Sports debut tomorrow on Thursday with an article about Cam Newton being the National Football League's most valuable player. Check it out. Check everything out. And thanks for tuning in, everybody. It's been fun. Brayton, thank you for joining me. Thank you for being here. Absolutely. It's always a pleasure. And we'll talk to you guys again sometime very soon.